Void. Void.
Here at TWRS, we're always here to help our squad when they need a little push in the right direction. That's just who we are. We're a beautifully diverse group of goofballs dedicated to driving fake race cars as fast as possible. And we continue to push each other to the front using the power of nonsense. We have one of the strongest NASCAR programs on the service, and you can access it all for $24.99 a month. And we just released individual subscriptions for $14.99 a month for each NASCAR vehicle. We also just added a rallycross program, and our IndyCar program is taking off as well. So come join the weird side. We have speed and cookies. Cookies are not included in some locations.
Live from the Music City, we welcome race fans one and all back to Green Flag TV. This afternoon, we get set to close out the first half of the ASRL NextGen Cup Series season on Sunday nights. My name is Nola Rempel, alongside Scott Rankin. We're bringing you all of racing action from start to finish of this 120-lap affair this afternoon. Scott, it's a 1.3-mile concrete behemoth, and 250 kilometers later, we're going to be closing out the first half of a 16-race season. It's been a good one so far. Lots of really clean racing, lots of strategy-based racing. That's not looking to change here this afternoon.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that we're seeing at the moment, and we're really experiencing such a strong period for this league at the moment, is it's going green flag, and it's going green flag long distances. That's opening up strategy options, and I think we're going to see another strategy-based race tonight. So sit yourselves down, buckle in. Oh, and by the way, server setup issues also mean we've got ourselves an open qualifying session. The big thing about these cars, you need to get that grip in the front end. Dirty air could be a factor, but hey, could the toe all of a sudden mess up the qualifying order? It could shake things up tonight, Nolan.
There could be some big shakeups tonight, but one thing that's still looking to be certain is that Brody Gunter will still be leading this race most likely with the points lead, sitting 63 points clear of Josh Mahigi, the only driver in the 500-point bracket with 562 to Higi's 499. It's a tight race for second, though, with only 8 points between Higi and Schlosser for the number 2 spot, and only 3 behind Schlosser. You've got 4th-place runner Johnny Hamby.
Yeah, Hamby I'm really interested to keep an eye on, whether or not he can start to really make that comeback. He's got an opportunity. We've seen some really good things out of him thus far this season. Tonight's going to be a critical one. You've got to make sure that you settle yourself down. This is not an easy racetrack, low grip racetrack. Reasonably high speeds, not a 1.5 miler. This is not a cookie cutter. There is nothing like Nashville Superspeedway.
It really is a unique quantity in of all of itself. I mean, of course, it's got a similar shape to several cookie cutters, but the fact that it's concrete is going to make it a much more difficult challenge. Roughly 37 laps is going to be the call for strategies here this afternoon. You mentioned, of course, open qualifying being the thing here this afternoon, Scott. Well, you still got some drivers that are looking to get themselves in with some laps. Among those is Rene Garcia just leaving pit road.
Yeah, get out there, start turning the laps. I'm just having a quick look around as well. I'm not 100% certain. It doesn't look like there's any maximum lap count set. So if the drivers can't get that lap in, can't get the pace out of the tire, reset to pit lane, have another crack. We've got about 1 minute and 15 seconds left on this session, but it's really important here. At the early stages, Paul Ellison's run a lap time that's about 1/10 of a second faster, 10th and a half faster than his best practice time, sorry. So he's all of a sudden found a lot of speed. I do wonder whether or not the 55 machine was focusing on long run pace during the practice session as well, so he could feel really dialed in. This could be a problem if he can get himself on the front row.
Riding on board with Rene Garcia right now as he works his way through turn numbers 3 and 4 and back out to the front stretch and at the stride this time by. Where will his first lap put him? As Brody Gunter goes second quick on the boards this afternoon, it'll only be good enough for 12th place out of 13 for Garcia this afternoon. Another driver trying to make ground. It's going to be none other than Casey Campbell turning his first lap on the back straightaway.
Yeah, I've just seen Brody Gunter as well. He's been doing exactly what I said. Get back to pit lane, get more laps in. It shakes things up. Look, I don't hate different qualifying formats. What it does is it says to the drivers, hey, you've got to adjust. You've got to make some adjustments. You've got to get out there. You've got to be turning laps. You've got to be really working on things. I tell you, Gunter just improved. Previously improved by about 0.8 of a second. Well, he's gone ahead and knocked, 8 thousandths of a second. Now he's knocked 200ths of a second out of that lap time. He's going to have another crack. There's not enough time to reset back to the pit lane and have one more crack at the lap time. So he's on his final lap. I just don't think the tires are going to be there on lap number 3. He's got to find himself another 100th of a second, though, to see if he can go for pole. Probably 2.
Josh Mahigi could get an extra lap in at the buzzer. Brody Gunter crossed the line, and he will go to pole. A 29.58. Absolutely knocking Paul Ellison off at the top spot who had set a 29.59. And Matt Williamson also improving up to 5th.
I tell you, Gunter again just looks rock solid. A lot of laps logged during the practice sessions as well. Looking at tires, he went and tested short run pace as well, really trying to find that lap time as well. Ellison's been good, man. I mean, it's really good to see this qualifying order shaken up a fair bit. Long run pace, that's the key now. You've got to look after those tires. You've got to sort yourself in. Remember, the big thing about qualifying, it only matters for that first session. Once you get out there and you get into a race trim, qualifying pace means nada.
Qualifying complete, and this is how everything lines up for your 13-car field. Brody Gunter of 510 Racing with 4 wins on the board so far, looking to go for 5. He's alongside Paul Ellison by just 8 thou on the front row. Mike Milfeld Jr. starts at the number 3 spot alongside Jared Williams in 4th. Matt Williamson is 5th with Joshua Higgy down in 6th. And then it's Tommy Cook and Joshua Rutherford to close out the top half of the field.
Yeah, from there on back, it's going to be Alex Hallen and Corey Rutherford on 9th and 10th. Jan van Leer and Rene Garcia out of 11th and 12th. And rounding out the tail end of the field is going to be Speed Mafia's Casey Campbell.
So 13 cars, again, a low field count here this afternoon, but this should mean we're going to get in for some long green flag racing. That's all going to be surrounded with strategy. We were expecting to see some long runs on the Milwaukee Mile last week. We did not end up getting that, though. 6 yellow flags disrupted racing action throughout the hour-and-a-half race last week. Brody Gunter, though, did walk away with the race win. And for Gunter, that was his 3rd win in a row. He is looking to go 4 in a row right now for Brody Gunter. He would have gone 5 in a row if it weren't for James Watson upsetting this run at Rockingham.
Yeah, and that all came down to a strategy race, right? Cautions at very, very tricky times. Number of tires that was sort of taken. That's what it's going to come down to here tonight as well. Is if you think back to Rockingham, the caution just came at such an awkward time. It was just a little bit too early to bolt on a set of tires, because what would have happened is if a caution came late in the race, all those guys that went for that strategy, they would have been really, really in trouble, and they just would have been losing a lot of ground. Sometimes you get a little bit of luck. You're going to get that in NASCAR. That's part of the parcel. That's part of the arrangement. That's part of why people love this style of racing, is that sometimes you can get a bit of luck and you can pull a win out of nowhere. So Brody's got to be careful here tonight. I think he'll run a little bit conservative in terms of the strategy. Pit windows, we're going to be talking about them, Nolan, I think, as the run progresses, because they're such... The timing is awkward once again. Oh, and Corey Rutherford going fast, not going to happen. He's going to be clutching that thing all the way through.
We're happy that you're joining us here on a beautiful Sunday night. The Iverson Pace truck pulling down and into pit road. As once again, for the ASRL NextGen Cup Series, we close out the first half of the season as we say, time to go, go, go from the Music City.
Myfeld Jr. got a great getaway. The outside lane, Ellison looked like he was in the wrong gear. Really good shove on the run down to turn number 1. Now it's time to get those tires up to temperature here, Nolan.
Boy, a little bit of contact deeper in the field. Jared Williams way up the track after contact with Matt Williamson, where they come around to turn numbers 1 and 2. Down the backstretch, Brody Gunter clear with the race lead early on. Williams jumps down ahead of the 199, picks off 4th. Not upset by that little bit of contact of 1 and 2 early on. Gunter leads the first lap to green.
Yeah, we were expecting this. He's going to settle on. He's got the pace early. Now he's got the clear air as well. Nashville, first 5 or 10 laps, you can really close up and get aggressive. After that, the dirty air just really dominates the racetrack. Very, very hard to run someone down. So if Milfeld Jr.'s got pace, he needs to show it early. Ellison's doing a really, really good job. Remember, qualified on the front row. He's got speed. Milfeld Jr. just got that better getaway. So the tricky part here is how close can you follow and don't really wear out those front tires. The difficulty with setups at this racetrack, Nolan, is if you get the car loose, it's going to be very, very loose. You got to trend a little on the tighter side, which means looking after the front tires, that's the way the run progresses.
Joshua Higgy getting around Alex Howland from the top shelf, as Howland now under fire from Jan van Leer behind. As Howland drives that one in on the bottom, Van Leer for the 5-hour Energy Camry tucks back in line, as Alex Howland will hang on to the 8th place spot. Right now, Van Leer, the biggest mover on the day, but not by much. Only up 2 positions so far. Started 11th. He has now fought his way into the top 10 and is looking to try to close up a little bit further than that.
Tricky at the moment to really make any ground. Like, both of the lanes in that mid-pack are sort of being dominated. Everyone's moving around the track. There's not really a defined best line at the moment. Just having a look at Josh Rutherford, if you notice the way that he drove down into 3 and 4, very, very low on the entry. Again, gets downforce on the front of the car as he enters, so he can carry a little bit more speed in, carry a little bit more brake, so his corner entry pace is really, really good. Middle and off, though, he's always going to struggle. That's also how you burn a lot more rear tire. Then down here, have a look, shifts himself a little bit higher, found the lane of clean air, then Van Leer found a lane of clear air all the way down on the bottom as Alex Howland's just sort of run that middle group. So clean lanes of air are appearing. You got to time it. This is really tricky to do, though, as a NASCAR driver. This is something, I'm an IndyCar driver by heart. That's my best discipline. I'm used to looking for the clean lane of air. And sometimes you turn into a corner and the guy in front of you just follows your lane. There's nothing you can do. You just suffer for downforce the whole way.
Van Leer to the inside of Howland into turn number 1. He'll pick off the number 8 spot as Alex Howland drive in around the top shelf, trying to keep the number 8 behind. So side by side down the back straight, but Van Leer able to stuff it into turn 3. But Howland able to just find some more of that run off the top shelf. They nearly come together.
Yeah, and he's got the run now, a little bit of drafting support on the bottom lane, but Howland's finding something up there. The difficulty for both of these guys is sapping some tire, and Jan Van Leer had to send it into turn 1, did so, slides up, takes a spot.
Alex Howland, will he think about cutting back to the inside for turn 3 to try to battle back? He will not. He's going to tuck it in line, realizes it's a long race. Not worth going after that spot this early on unless he can get the door to open up by putting on too much pressure to Van Leer. Up the road, the turn 200 teammates are going at it. Tommy Cook and Matt Williamson exchanging spots.
I think that was intentional. They sort of recognized that Tommy's got a little bit more pace at the moment, and Matt's just like, all right, take the spot away, let's just settle in, long race, just focus on the long run pace. If Williamson's burned those front tires off, he's going to be in for a very, very long back after this stint. We're going to talk about fuel numbers as well. Remember, 120 laps here tonight. What's your critical lap numbers? Well, the way you'd like to split this race up is 40, 40, 40. Run 40 laps on each of the stints, puts you in a really, really good spot. The problem being, you got 37 laps of gas. You got to find 9 laps of fuel across the duration. Caution comes out now. Perfect. That's what everyone wants to see. That is 3 37-lap runs to get yourself to the end of the race. You'll probably even have a couple laps left over with the caution period. So that's what people are looking for right now.
Jarrell Williams getting up and into the outside wall out of turn number 4. Puts a little bit of damage on the right front of that machine. Meanwhile, for the lead, Milfeld Jr. to the inside of Gunter, going for the top spot. Gunter driving around the top shelf, and Gunter hangs on for the race lead. But like Milfeld Jr., showing that Federated Auto Parts Camry is not content running second.
He's got 2 ways to go about this. He can either, if he thinks he's going to be weaker on the longer run, he's got to get aggressive now. But if he's already starting to track back up and run down Brody Gunter, that says to me he's running significantly better on tires. Generally, when I find myself in one of those spots, particularly running P2, I go into max conservation mode. Whoa, my God, 2 guys in the background way up the track. I think it was Williams and Cook.
Couple of drivers swinging up and wide as nobody going around, but definitely some excitement going on over there down at turn number 1. Let's take a look back and show you what happened here as we come on down.
They both just missed the bottom.
And it was Cook and Williams way up the racetrack.
I both missed the bottom down in 1 and 2. I mean, the track can develop, the line can shift up a little bit, but it was a lot further up than I expected to see them. I don't think that was the actual turn that we were looking at that I was sort of referencing. So I think there was another moment there. Not 100% sure what happened. Right, back to our race lead. Milfeld Jr. is able to just really, really follow close. This shouldn't happen. This says that it's higher offset and it's favoring Milfeld Jr. The problem Gunter has got is that he's already put the heat, he's already put the pressure in those tires. He's always going to fade a lot more. If he starts to drive and take away the air from Milfeld Jr., he might be able to recover. He might be able to put himself back into a spot where he can really drive away from the field again. So it's nearly aero blocking is what he's going to do for this next period of the race. Have a look how loose Milfeld Jr. is, though.
And Milfeld not feeling too stable underneath that 155, so he's going to continue to try to find some grip as Brody Gunter still hangs on for the lead, but Milfeld doing a good job on just keeping him honest. The top 3 already breaking out a 2 to 2.5 second gap ahead of Tommy Cook, who leads the rest of the field.
Yeah, Cook's managed to get his way back by these guys as well. So if he can settle here, the big problem now is Williamson's got to try and find his way around Williams. Williams had pace, was able to go and nick those spots. Now he's fading. So really difficult. You can't afford to oversend it into any of the corners because once you get out of the groove, here it's whoa, that's way up the track. That is a long, long way up the track. Had to get it turned down. The problem for that line for Matt Williamson is that there is very little grip up there until rubber gets laid down, and it takes a long time to get rubber up in the higher groove here.
And that is going to leave the door open to Jan van Leer, who will take advantage of that mistake. Van Leer trying to get into the top half of this field. He is fighting it out for the 6th place spot with Matt Williamson. Van Leer holding the bottom. Williamson up on top, and I think he may have caught the wall there a little bit entering turn 1.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I did see Tommy Cook got the barrier off at turn 4 as well, so he is really pushing hard right now. He's just about got the barrier again off of 1 and 2. So right now, Tommy Cook's pushing on. Lap times are starting to fall away a little bit from our peak lap times. Fastest lap of the race, 29.659. Melfeld Jr. He's about 0.2 of a second off. These guys back here, they're about 2.5 to 0.3 of a second off. So lap times are certainly fading, just nowhere near as far as you would necessarily normally expect. Second half of the tire round, that's where it's going to start to fade.
Jan van Leer tried to get clear. Williamson up and into the outside wall, but he's got a run going with that despite that contact, and he's back alongside him down for turn 3.
Yeah, the problem is you can't be on the high line. I like to defend from the high line, but you can't overtake from the high line. The reason being is if somebody gets their nose down and underneath you, you always carry the momentum up and off the corner, provided you can find the mid-corner turn. Overtaking from the outside, you've got to get alongside of them before the corner entry. And, well, the corner entry, everyone likes to turn in from that outside lane. So overtaking from the high line, very, very difficult. Carrying momentum off from the high line, great way to defend.
It's a good midfield battle we got going on here in the early stages. Already we're about halfway through your first fuel run of the night. Van Leer and Williams side by side now. And all of this is allowing for the top runners to continue to break away.
No.
3 wide down the front stretch. That's Brave Howland into Williamson. Williamson steps it out and manages to hang on.
Oh, this track is just about not wide. The groove's not wide enough for 3 wide. That's the difficulty. And it narrows right at the kink on the front stretch. That was bravery. Although I think that might have just been a touch of stupidity too.
No kidding, that was wild there, especially this early in the race. And already we're beating and banging like we're on a green-white checkered finish. There you see Rene Garcia. He's trying to attack Joshua Higgy now down to turn number 1. And this is the battle for the 8th place spot. Garcia's got the move done.
One of the difficult things, Nolan, is you mentioned the length of the track, 1.33 miles. Well, it's not a cookie cutter. It's not your intermediates. It's not a 1.5 miler by any stretch of the imagination. But it's also not a short track. So what you get is these moments like this, whereby you've got to run and you're like, I got to take this run somewhere. But at the same time, it's nearly got a short track mindset to it. And you see guys get tempers going very, very quickly for a larger oval at Nashville. It's got that short track mindset to it. And the reason for it's low grip. That's the big key.
It is interesting how much we tend to treat this track a little bit like it's a point-and-shoot short track, you know, kind of akin to something like Richmond or Iowa. But with the size, it just doesn't work that way, as Jared Williams just found out the hard way, as he almost gets into the outside wall in the middle of 3 and 4, loses 2 spots. But, I mean, you're right. I mean, we treat this track oftentimes as if it were a short track, when in reality, it's anything but. It's an easy mistake to make, and that's how you get a lot of accidents, especially in the early going at a race like this.
Well, it's because the groove's so narrow as well. Like, the corners, they look very, very wide, and there is ability for you to get a nose in full wide on someone. The problem is that never works out here. The groove is that gray line that you see, the rubbered in line towards the tail at the bottom end of the track. That's just where there's actual rubber for the tires to bite. Concrete, a low grip surface. You slide. Think about any time you've driven down into a pit stall. All the pit stalls on pit lane, low grip, concrete, generally the bulk of the way around the NASCAR circuit. And you slide through those pit boxes so easily. Think about that now out on a racetrack. The tires trying to press in. The way that you set up the car, the way that you approach racing is completely different. It's a completely different skill set. It's probably why I'm good here. I tend to learn quite quickly, and I actually really, really like this track to race. But it is a tough one. This is, I would say, the second toughest track next to Darlington.
Case Campbell possibly with problems here as the Speed Mafia Mustang trying to get it down and into pit road, lost the back end, spun into pit road, and nosed it hard into the wall, and he was forced to take the toe to pit road. That's a bit early, though, to be coming down the pit road this early on, though. I mean, we're still just past the halfway point in this stint. Do you reckon he was always intending on going for a starting part there, or was that a strategy call gone wrong?
I think it might have been a strategy call going wrong, and it's just not working out for him at the moment. Remember how we said 37, 37, 37 plus a splash of 9 laps? Well, if you break the race down into 4, it's about 30 laps. We're 5 laps shy of it, so it's a good time to go for the undercut if that's what your strategy is necessarily going to be. The problem being tire temps, tire fall off, not really a huge deal. So the problem being getting those tires up to temperature is probably one of the bigger cases. But if you know that you're gonna short pit here, you got 4 sets of tires. There is 4 runs here tonight. Yeah, you can pit lap 30 and start trying to get the undercut on everyone. But the tricky part is you undercut, you're locked into that strategy. As soon as you undercut the first time, you are locked in and you have to go hard the whole night long.
Rene Garcia in a battle with Alex Howland. Jan Van Leer started to build the gap. The Eminent Signs and Graphics Mustang takes one away from Alex Howland down low. Racing action continuing on as normal as this race is starting to come about itself. It's a big shame for Casey Campbell. He was, of course, the driver that was sponsoring this race, and he finds himself out of the fight early on.
I'm sure he's sitting down there on pit road. He might have a TV screen hooked up now and just watching along, sitting and enjoying the racing. You know, sometimes when it's not going your way, you like to pull up a broadcast, sit back and relax.
That's what a lot of people do in the endurance race community when they're not racing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a big thing. You want to. What I like about the racing community is everyone's down here to celebrate and enjoy the event, get themselves out there. You know, you go away and do your drag stuff of a weekend. I'm over here. I was talking to my parents and indulging in a little bit of motocrossing and super motards and a whole bunch of different things in the Australian racing community as well. So, you know, the big thing about the racing community is we're just racing fans, right? We love our racing action. We love a racing pit stop.
Matt Williamson, the first driver to commit to that undercut strategy that you alluded to, as he will come down on lap 29 of 120 this afternoon. So first run of pit stops started to kick off. There you see the top 3 that are going to lap him from the outside. And just a little ways behind, there's 4th place, 5th, 6th, and the rest of the field. So Williamson will go down a lap. That is to be expected. He should get that lap back, though, when he leaves pit road and the whole field cycles through.
I'm just keeping an eye on, remember I said Corey Rutherford's absolutely going to go for a fuel strategy here. The way to think about this is you have 4 groups of 10 laps. If you can save 1 lap of fuel for every 10 laps that you're racing, you're in the good. It's actually more around 12 to 13 laps worth of racing. If you can save 1 lap of fuel over 12 laps, you will get home with 1 less pit stop here tonight. And the big key about that is that means you've got an extra set of tires that you can play around. Is the caution at any stage, and it's an awkwardly timed caution, and you're good on fuel because you've run that little bit extra, you're going to have a really, really good opportunity to use that set of tires to buy yourself some track position. The big key, again, for Corey Rutherford is the pace. When you're clutching, when you're trying to save fuel running down to the corners, you run down in a little bit hot because you don't want to use the brakes. Where do you save the most fuel? Being on the clutch, not maximizing the end of the straights, lifting early and letting the air slow you down. So that means you don't use a lot of brake. What happens is if you don't have a consistent point to clutch in and make it to the bottom of the corners, you overheat the front tires because you're not slowing the car appropriately and you're asking a lot of them. And I'm seeing a lot of that again from Corey Rutherford.
He's been putting in that clutch and coasting a lot throughout this run, and this was, again, to be expected. He was the one that told us, fuel window, you can stretch it to about 37-ish laps. As into pit road comes Brody Gunter and Jan Van Leer. We've already seen Milfeld from 2nd place, and Tommy Cook also come down to pit road. So looking like a good chunk of this field, wanting to split it up into quarters rather than try to push for thirds and cut out a stop. They're taking the safe strategy.
Yeah, there could be a few guys. The big thing that I like about this strategy is you want to run past your first pit window, and the reason for that is cautions tend to happen in that first pit cycle. Brody Gunter, the few guys that are up at front, what have they got? They've got track positions. They've got a little bit of flexibility. They don't have to come down straight away. They can leave it a few laps and just sort of see what's happened. That's sort of what they're doing. Brody's going, okay, I'm comfortable here. I don't want to be undercut by Paul, so I'm going to trigger this first round of stops. Reasonable strategy. I don't hate this. The problem with it is if the caution happens now, all of these guys are in trouble. But your first stop, the longer you go on that first run, you just open up flexibility. As soon as you're locked into the undercut strategy, you're locked in, you are rigid, you've got no room to wiggle about. The longer you run on this first run, all of a sudden you've got a few different options. You can go, okay, I can make this stop really short. Or even that splash and dash that we're going to have to do at the end of the race. Think about it. It's only a 9-lap run that we're thinking about. Well, all of a sudden, maybe I can push that out to a 15, 16 lap run and have 2 really quick runs to finish the race.
More drivers bail out, though, before they can really think about committing to that strategy. As Paul Ellison has come down, so the top 6 have not come down to pit road yet. Everybody else is in, and here comes Alex Howland. He's in hot, though, and he's going to loop the back end.
He's going to save it?
Oh, no.
That's an unsafe pit lane entry for Williams.
Yeah, he didn't have a choice, though, in the matter.
Oh, that's disastrous. Did he get away with it? I think he might have gotten away with it, though. I think he got away with that one.
I don't think he did.
I'm not seeing a black flag against his name.
Did he have it cleared, potentially?
No, there's been no flag clear, so he's actually fine on this one. We'll keep an eye on this pit stop. If he's in and out, he's gold.
No kid. If he managed to get around that, that would be absolutely legendary from Jarrell Williams. There you see Rene Garcia in just behind. What a tough break, though, for Alex Howland. He has lost a huge chunk of time with that mistake that he made on entry.
I'm just having a look at Corey Rutherford as well, just keeping an eye on him. Remember how I was talking about his fuel-saving techniques? No, it is a penalty.
Yeah, it's a long stop. There's no way that's not a penalty.
That's a bummer. That is there's nothing he could have done.
And this is
the onboard shot is going to tell the real story from his perspective.
He was so
that's
close.
A penalty.
If he had managed to keep it just to the inside of that yellow cone, he would have made it, but the second he hit that cone, it was over.
And there's nothing you can do. You committed at this point. You're committed. You're in late on the brakes. Yep. I think you've actually seen me make a similar pit lane entry, actually, Nolan. You commentating on me in a truck at Charlotte where I rammed the pit lane entry wall.
I've commentated on a lot of trucks hitting that pit lane wall at the entry to Charlotte.
Good to know I'm in strong company.
Well, not even just trucks. Charlotte's a very difficult pit road. It's a lot more difficult than a lot of people realize.
Yeah. Tell that to the right side of my truck. That destroyed.
Oh, look out, Rutherford!
Oh!
Joshua Rutherford into the wall in the background as he lost it on the entry.
And remember, these guys are going long on fuel, so does he have the fuel to get to his bay, to get that cuff? If he was out of fuel as he entered pit lane there, that'd be a tow. Night done.
Just got in there a little too aggressively, and it's not big impact into the wall. He should be able to, in theory, get away with that.
It was, he hung on the banking for too long, so he had 2 tires on the banking was the big key. He just sat on that crossover between the apron and the racing surface for way too long. My lord, Corey Rutherford, you've saved too much fuel. Okay, remember how I was saying he does this too aggressively? He's saved too much fuel. That's a problem. You can't gain positions if you're running lap times. If saving and going this long on fuel is worth about 1/10 of a second a lap, you cannot, if you multiply that by 40 laps, that's 4 seconds. That's too much fuel saving, and he's gonna pull it up. Okay, it's okay.
Boy, he was pushing the limit there on that one, but it's not something you hear all that often. You're saving too much fuel, right? And if I may play the devil's advocate here, I think that's a better problem for him to have, because now he just doesn't have to save as much on the next 2 stints. He can push a little bit harder now that he's got some extra fuel in the reserves.
The big key I would say about this is if we get to the back end of the race and he's 4 seconds off of gaining 5 spots, You've lost 5 spots. You can now run the next 2 stints a little bit harder. The other problem is this first stint, you expect to save less fuel. I would have been, the first stint, you're always targeting getting to 40 because you have to run formation laps and gridding sequence. So you always burn a half a lap worth of fuel in the first run. And he's saved 2 laps extra. This is too much fuel that he's saved. And the problem with that is that that costs you lap time. Why would you save? Remember, 37 laps on green flag hard running was about the amount that he's gotten to 42. That's 5 laps of fuel when he only needed to save 3. Now, from a strategy point, he's looking really, really good. But now he's off the lead lap.
He should, I think, be able to get that lead lap back pretty quickly, though, considering he's got 10 lap pressure tires than the 2 cars in front of him. So I don't see him having much issues in retaking the lead lap. His problem is he's just got to make sure that he doesn't burn up these new tires in doing so he can actually try to make up more ground.
Well, the problem is with fuel saving is that you're not running peak lap times. So right now, even though the guys around him have burned off absolutely with 10 laps worth of tires, he's still got a fuel save. Remember what I was saying, 4 seconds. These 2 lead lap cars are a second in front of him, less than a second. That's 4 seconds down the road. He's 3 seconds clear from going a lap down. That's exactly where he wants to be on strategy. That keeps him on the lead lap. He runs in clear air. He can catch up a lot of that time. The problem is right now, with the amount of saving that he's done, you could also save more in the pack. If he's running a 10th a lap faster, he would have been at the back end of that pack. He could pull down the straightaway, clutch in, just save. The method that he's using to save fuel as well is actually shutting the engine off. We talked about this a lot at Indy. What happens is when that kicks back in, you're actually compressions, you're bump starting the engine effectively, right? When you bump start the engine, you lock the rear tires, you put heat through the tires, you slide the tires, you put wear on the tires. Very bad things. That costs you lap time. I've seen him doing that again here tonight. It also puts more pressure on the front tires because when you bump start the engine, it's like putting the brakes on really, really aggressively as well. Throws a lot of the weight forward in terms of the car. Wears all 4 tires really, really badly. So you can save fuel through that method if you're in dire straits and you have to save a lot of fuel. Yeah, that's the time where I'd be doing it. I think he could have done that. When he's run 42 laps in terms of fuel, clutching would have gotten him that fast, saved him tire being quicker.
Milfeld starting to close in on Brody Gunter as well for the race lead. The lone battle on the racetrack right now. He's closed in about half a tenth on the last 2 laps. Doesn't look like he's closed in that much this time by. He is down to 3.5 tenths though. Compare the lap times this time around, another 300s gain, so he is closing, he's just not closing very quickly.
I mean, he's there and he's thereabouts, so, you know, doing a reasonable job. And you mentioned, you know, the differences in terms of pit stops for Milfeld Jr., you know, 2 laps earlier, so he's doing a reasonable job. The tow is probably helping him out just a little bit here. It was the overcut was the better way to go in terms of strategy, but you can only do 1 or 2 laps worth of overcut because at that point, everybody else, tires come back up to temperature, right? They become quicker again. But Milfeld's doing a really, really good job of making sure he's above or below Brody Gunter's splitter when he's trying to turn up and down the corner, which means he's generating that downforce. So he's doing a great job of doing everything he can to make sure that he's got enough downforce to be quick.
So he is continuing to run this gap in, and we'll see if he'll continue to make some more moves to go for the race lead. We're going to take ourselves with a quick step back. We return. We'll be back with it for the second half of the race on Green Flag TV.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to Green Flag TV. Tonight's race brought to you by TWR Setups. Want to race open but not sure if your setup is up to snuff? Want to race something made by someone who knows their stuff? Want to know why we're asking random questions in a rhyming fashion like some sort of poetry buff? Check out TWRsetups.com. Their sets are meticulously crafted and personally run by their top-tier drivers to ensure that you get the best that there is. So don't delay. Join the wild side of setup shops today. Still in the green flag conditions, approaching the halfway point, and when a lot of drivers should be coming down for that second stop, battle is closing in for fourth.
Yeah, this is going to be tight. So target lap numbers is going to be about lap 74 for this second pit stop. You might start to see the drivers really shifted onto that 30 lap marker. Might see pit stops anytime from lap 60. We're coming to lap 60 in about 2 laps time. So anything could start to happen. Anything could open up. This next 2 stops is where the window is going to blow wide open, because lap 60 to lap 74, that's your pit window for this next stop. The one after that is going to be even wider.
And just as the battle for fourth was looking to close, it's immediately going to break apart again as Tommy Cook misses turn 1, leaving once again the closest duo on the racetrack for the top 2. So this has very much turned into a strategy race, as you were talking about, Scott. I mean, you've got everybody spread out around the racetrack. Everybody's on a very differing strategy as well. Haven't seen a lot of drivers coming down to the same lap. I mean, you take a look at the stint lengths, very rarely do you see such a broad spread of drivers coming down the pit road. I don't think a single driver came down to the same lap as another.
I think there's a couple drivers that came down. Like, there's 1 or 2 drivers that sort of came down on the same lap as somebody else. So it's not many, though. Like we said, there's a fairly big spread. The earliest of our pit stops came at the end of lap 28, I believe, which was Matt Williamson, who dived in 2 laps earlier than the 30 stop window. And that extends all the way through to lap 42 for Corey Rutherford. The problem Corey Rutherford's now got is that he's having a lot of problems getting the front end of that car to drip up. He's driven back to Josh Heagy. He's keeping himself in contention, but Josh Rutherford's starting to come at him. What do we say? 30 laps on the book. Here's our first of our stoppers.
Right at the halfway point, Mike Milfeld Jr. comes down to pit road. Corey Rutherford looking to get around Joshua Heagy, and Heagy moves right up to the outside wall. Doesn't fight Corey at all for that one. Lets him through. And Tommy Cook, Matt Williamson also coming down to pit road. Ooh. And Williamson really slow an entry there. Did he overshoot?
I'm wondering whether or not he had to slide on the pit lane entry as well. It's been a tricky one tonight. Were we up to like half the field is at pit lane entries? Yeah, look at the touch in the apron. Yeah, you can just see he's just already out of control. It's too much riding on the apron. You've got to be very, very accurate with when you turn down. And when you turn down across that apron, you've got to turn down aggressively and straighten the wheel out. So you turn down hard, point the car at where you want it to go, and then straighten the wheel out, because you just want to, I was taught to motorcycle ride on the roads down in Melbourne, Australia. We have trams, and the way that we talk about it is you try and cross the tram tracks at about a 90-degree angle, so you're completely perpendicular. Least amount of time crossing those tram tracks with low grips. It's the exact same scenario. You can't get it at 90 degrees, but you want to get it as high of an angle as possible. That way you're crossing that apron for as minimal time as possible. Car doesn't bottom out. You know, you've got reasonable grip.
It's a good save, all things considered. He didn't do what so many other drivers have done, which is either go into the wall or find themselves having to go evasive into the grass. Brody Gunter, the race leader, is into pit road, waiting on Paul Ellison to come in now. He will stay out a little bit longer. So Ellison not coming down to pit road just yet. He'll pick up another lap lead on the day.
Yeah, I'm thinking for Paul, he's probably going to target... Well, he's in this mode now, right, of running long. So I reckon he's going to run it all the way out to maybe about lap 70 or so. Really run it long. What he's doing is creating windows of the race whereby if a caution falls, he's got total control of the field. He's in the lead. He's got control. Caution falls. He'll be on the lead lap. Everyone else will be off the lead lap. Free pit stop gets to the front.
Milfeld and Gunter, the battle for the net race lead. Now looking nice and tight. Milfeld has closed in a lot on Gunter through that pit stop run, and in fact, that's because Milfeld just through getting in and out of his pit box, shaved off a second from Gunter's lead.
Yeah, very, very good stop through the lane. You're right, a second faster from end to end in pit lane. Really, really aggressive on the pit lane entry. Just ran a purple first sector as well. So all the way down through turn 1, turn 2, and across the back straight, first half of the back straight, fastest sector of the race. So he's got a lot of pace right now. The problem is, he's got to get this done before those tires overheat. Gunter missed the bottom. This is an opportunity.
Oh boy, and Gunter almost into the outside wall. If Milfeld wants to go for it, this would now, like you said, be a great opportunity. If he waits around much longer, this opportunity is going to slip away from him once Gunter finds his rhythm. Paul Ellison ahead comes into pit road. These two drivers get back onto the lead lap.
Here we go, run from Milfeld Jr. I'm wondering if he's just going to stuff the nose in down here. No, elects not to. He's going to send it in, though, from the top rope. What he's forced is Gunter's had to cover him all the way to the bottom. Now he's going to build a bigger run down the back straightaway. He was so close, though, on the run down of turn 1 and 2. He should have had a crack. I really feel that might have been his best opportunity.
He's still just within about 1 to 2 tenths, so he can still get this job done. But he's got to get a little bit closer. He's got to fight a little bit more aggressively. Gunter's into the wall. Now you have to go for it.
Oh, absolutely. He can't wait. He's underneath him, so he's already got the overlap. Now he'll look to send it down on in here. Not too tight. You want to make sure you make the bottom. You've got all the grip down there. Gunter's going to rotate it off with less grip on the high side. He'll carry the momentum off. Get up there. Side draft him. Pull him back. Missed the opportunity.
He had an effort, though. Just, I think, waited a little too long to execute. Gets right back in it, though. Drives almost to the back bumper. Now he's up and hard into the outside wall.
The problem there, he got too close to the rear bumper. That meant worst of the dirty air. That meant it took all the weight off the nose. That's going to cost him big. That was heavy contact. I do wonder if there's not suspension damage right front. See this exit here? He's got to be up. He's got to be side drafting him. He actually got a reasonable run. As soon as they get off the corner, though, he's got the momentum from the outside lanes too. But watch this. Look how close he gets down in here. There's no air going to that front splitter, and you can see it. The car just does not turn.
He was throttling up in the middle of the corner, too. I think he was trying to give him the bumper, probably. Trying to get him a little bit unsettled to move him out of the way, but it didn't go the way he was hoping for. Now Brody Gunter is well up into the net race. They just got around Joshua Rutherford for position, and Milfeld Jr. is down to net P2. And with all of that damage on the front end, I would be shocked if we didn't see him just drop it back the rest of the race.
Well, he's actually matching again. He's back to matching Gunter's sector times. And Gunter, again, I think he just caught the outside barrier. So he's not saving by any stretch of the imagination. So Milfeld Jr. might be okay. The car is definitely going to be affected. It was not a light hit, but the problem is Gunter a little bit more affected? Gunter looks vulnerable. I've got to be honest, this is the first time we've really seen him look vulnerable.
I mean, I kind of agree to an extent, but with that hard hit, it's going to be a long time before anybody's able to reel him back in. But I think the only competition he's really got right now is Millfeld. I mean, Paul Ellison right now, 4 seconds off of these guys because of how long he waited to come down pit road.
4 seconds is actually not a long time for the length that Ellison was actually out there and waiting. That's actually quite a good margin. And if he can maintain this pace for such a long period of the time, brings himself back into it, but it's going to take time. The strategy that Paul Ellison is playing is the very, very long game. He's going to be relevant last 10 laps of the race. That's what he's targeting.
And hey, you don't need to lead every lap. You just need to lead one. I mean, look at the High Tide Racing League. Michael Ashmore led only about 100 feet or so for the season opener at Daytona. Never won another race, but that 100 feet of leading the race was enough to get himself into the round of 12 for the playoffs on Monday nights. Did he go any further than that? But he had a shot to win a championship because he was in the right place at the right time. If Ellison could set himself up, it could be big, as he looks to be the first driver to unsettle Gunter's absolute domination over the last month or so.
Well, I mean, could be relevant. Millfeld Jr.'s just had a really, really good lap too. So Gunter caught Corey Rutherford, and he caught him in a really, really awkward time, really, really awkward spot. And that cost him a lot of momentum down the front straight away. That margin was out over 0.7 of a second. It's back round about half a second.
Oh,
Rutherford's
boy.
loose.
Gets into the wall. Not a lot of damage, though. I think Corey might have just gotten away with that.
Yeah, I think he's okay. But now this is the big key, is continue building. Only lost maybe 0.5 of a second, so he's doing a really, really good job. Millfeld Jr.'s lap times are better. He's got some toe. He's got some air on the front end of this thing now, so he's in an okay spot. But at the same time, I just think he's quicker. I really, really do feel like he's quicker. Dirty air around this place is a big problem.
Take a look on board with Millfeld here as Corey Rutherford started to bobble up the racetrack. Right there, he overcorrects and gets that little bit of contact with the outside wall. Could have been a lot worse, though. Corey Rutherford could have cut that car back down and spun himself across Millfeld's nose.
Did a great job holding it up there. There's a bump down in 3 and 4 as well, and I think he's sort of, it's as the car's transitioned across that bump is where he's started to lose the rear end, and he's driven that car reasonably well up and out of the corner. So can't really ask for much more. Given the position that he was in, given the race scenario that he's running, he's actually done a reasonable job right there.
And now we see Jent Van Leer, we see Tommy Cook hovered within 1/4 of a second of each other. So the 5-hour Energy Camry trying to keep it in front of the turn 200 Mustang in the battle for the number 7 spot. Jent Van Leer currently up 4 positions. Tommy Cook just trying to recover back to where he started this race in that 7th place spot. Hasn't been the race that Tommy Cook is going to want to remember. He's had some strong performances in the past. I'm surprised to see him struggling this much so far down the order.
Yeah, Tommy Cook was a big fan of our commentary from the first round too. I believe the phrase, if you can't handle the cook, get out of the kitchen, has been repeated a few times. They want merch of that on a shirt. So it was really good, you know, chatting to those guys after the first couple races of the season and finding that league culture. You gotta have a strong league culture. You gotta have a bunch of guys who enjoy racing. The Turn 200 guys really represent that.
Joshua Higgy really slow through turns 1 and 2 that last time by. You think he's pulling off the same fuel saving strategy that Corey Rutherford is? And I think I just answered my own question, as that car wasn't running going into turn 3.
Yeah, he definitely is. But yeah, he pit at the end of lap 38 on the first run, so he didn't save enough fuel on the first run. Now he has to on this run, so that's what he's trying to do, is bring himself back relevant. The problem is, if he goes 38 laps on this next run, his race is done. You can't get that back. You cannot go 44 laps on the final run. So he's sort of forced to go 41-41 for the final 2 runs. If he can get to 42, it's only 40 laps. He can probably get away with clutching on the final run, save himself a little bit more lap time. But it's tricky. It's not easy. So he's just in a floaty position at the moment, whereby he hasn't. The problem with the fuel saving strategy is when you go at it so hard and you miss it, you've cost yourself all the track time, all the track position, and you've got none of the benefit. And he's in that hole now of, I've got to dig myself out.
Right now, he is lapping 31.7, while the rest of the field is lapping between 29 and 30-second laps. So he is effectively about 2 seconds a lap slower than everybody else in this field, including Corey Rutherford, who set a 30.5 the last time by.
Yeah, but Corey's already done the bulk of the fuel saving. He's done the big section of this race, got himself in a really, really good spot. And I was about to say, we're on lap 80, so he's now got himself to the period where he can pit and make it home from here. And it's this next part of the run, he can actually run at a reasonable speed. You know, he doesn't have to slow everything way, way, way down. Done all the hard work, now let's just get the car home.
Joshua Rutherford coming down to pit road for what could be his final stop of the afternoon. And Corey Rutherford still remaining out. He's got a bit of that extra fuel to burn. We talked about that before. The problem for Corey Rutherford, he is again guaranteed to be down a lap because he's right now 9 seconds off of the leaders, and he hasn't made his last stop yet.
Yeah, so the one way to think about this is the track position that we're seeing at the moment is about the relative track position at the end of the race. So what Corey Rutherford's actually done right now is he's sitting relatively third on the track. He has cost himself a pit stop to the 2 leaders, but only to the 2 leaders. Everybody else, he's going to come out at the back end of the race and sit third. Good points night. So that's the switch that we sort of got to flip, right? How much fuel did he save? This run, he's only gone about the 39 lap run. Perfect. Didn't oversave. So he recognized from that first stint he did save too much. He's flipped that switch. The pace has come back up. Now he's in a reasonable position to make this run to the end of the race.
So Rutherford off the jacks for the final time tonight. And that'll take us back to this battle right now for 4th. Van Leer and Cook have not been able to get away from each other all night long. They have always been within about half a second of each other, and that's not looking to be changing anytime soon.
So it's going to come down to the final pit stop for these two. Who blinks first? Honestly, I want the undercut. I want to get away from the guy behind. I really want to get that overtake done and position myself really, really nicely. But it looks like Tommy Cook's just a fraction better on tires. He did come to the lane earlier, but his pit stop was slower. He had that issue on the pit lane. So he's got to undercut. If he does, he's quick. He puts himself in a really, really good position, but it's got to be a great stop this final one, and we're probably only 5 laps or so away from it happening.
He's close enough. He could have a look for it here if he could just get a little bit more. Close about another half a car. Van Leer misses the bottom, and Tommy Cook here could take this as a chance, and he's not going to get there as he slaps the outside wall.
So crossover lines, remember what we were talking about earlier on? Low entry means that you're going to push up. You just can't arc the car. So what Van Leer is doing is he's turning down the car so he can point it at the exit. What Cook is doing is he's pointing it at the entry, making it up in the middle of the corner, and then he's got a slow exit. So he's very, very strong on entries. His exits massively suffer. Watch this line here. Look at when Van Leer gets to the bottom. Now he can start to pick up the throttle, points the car at the exit in a really, really good rotational spot. Late apex, maintains momentum. Difficult for another car to get to you when you're driving this sort of line. If they can, they drive you up the track, take you off your line, then you're really, really vulnerable. You've got to make sure that you late brake.
Battle continuing on. Only 3 laps to go before we will enter the final 30 of this race. Next week, the ASRL NextGen Cup Series will be off for another week, but they'll be back on the 29th for the Bristol Motor Speedway. That race will most likely be tape delayed to Tuesday afternoon. Then it'll be, of course, Atlanta Motor Speedway, Chicagoland Speedway, Interlagos, and Kansas to close out the regular series season. The big news, though, on Green Flag TV coming up tomorrow. The High Tide Racing League finally makes its long-anticipated return with the V-Class cars. They'll be kicking it off for a 250-mile affair at the Daytona International Speedway on Monday nights. And then, of course, OMSRL, only 2 races left in their regular series season. They will be swinging it on out to that penultimate race at Talladega, the biggest, baddest track on the circuit. So if Superspeedway is your style, don't worry, we got you covered the next 2 days.
Hell yeah! Sounds like some amazing racing coming up too, and good to see those series is returning. 100 laps at Daytona, that's going to be a long old race. That's a lot of wear and tear on the drivers, and remember, it gets exciting at the tail end of it. Fatigue going to be a big part of that one. Fatigue, I think, starting to creep into this race just a little bit. Seeing again, a few more tires, issues starting to creep in. Cook, I think, is quicker than Jan Van Leer. I think if he can get the clear air, he'd run away from this one, absolutely dominate it. He just can't get there, and that's racing.
Well, we're at that mark for drivers to start coming down for the final stops of the afternoon. 30 laps to go. Question now, who blinks first?
Remember, it's changed back up front. That damage looks like it's finally kicked in for Mike Mulfelt Jr., and he's just not had the car performance ever since. So Gunter's really started to run away and have it all his own way. It's not been all his own way, but the margin's, you know, up now to 2.5 seconds. He's in a great spot, really controls everything. Van Leer's going to be the first of the guys in.
Paul Ellison, the first of the guys in as
Ooh.
well. Whoa, Rene Garcia stepping it down to the background as well. Van Leer, Cook are all into the background behind, and they nearly run each other over coming down to pit road.
Well, that's an aggressive pit lane. I wonder whether Van Leer might have got a speeding penalty.
Look at Garcia barely making it in just in front of them. Oh, he got a hit.
It was not a little hit, too. Well, he made up the time he needed to make.
So we'll take one more look at this one as these drivers came down to pit road, and we'll get another look, especially with Garcia here. He almost lost it again, just barely managed to get it down, and then Van Leer with that little bit of a hip check. I think he may have gotten away with that. I don't see why that would be a penalty, and sure enough, he did. All three cars out line astern.
Here we go. This is where it's going to get fun. And Cook was reasonable through the pit lane this time, so he made up a lot of ground this time by, but now he's got to get that move done again. Who's going to be better on cold tires? The fun fact about all of this is Rene Garcia is going to be feeding both of these guys dirty air. That equalizes the situation.
Matt Williamson coming down to pit road, stepping it out. He'll just get it locked down in time. Brody Gunter now the only driver that we are waiting on to pit, along with Joshua Rutherford and Joshua Higgy for the final stages.
I think both of those guys have actually done their final pit stop, if I'm going to be honest, Nolan, because remember, they're on the fuel save strategy. So
right, yes.
They made their final stop at lap 80. They're done.
Yes, of course, obviously. So, yeah, so Rutherford, the Rutherfords are good to go. Brody Gunter, the last car we're waiting on to pit.
Yeah. I just run it long. I mean, well, I don't think we're going to get a caution at this point, which means you can't run it long, really. So, but yeah, he had 3 seconds. He's relative to Milfelt Jr., he just ran a 30.3. Milfelt's just run a 29.8. So he can wait about 3 or 4 laps before he has to pit. So see him anytime from basically now.
Well,
Yeah,
there you go.
He's
right
in.
on cue.
Could not wait any longer. The problem is if Milfelt Jr. passes him in this pit stop, I don't think Gunter's going to come back at him. Like, the dirty air is just going to cover that off to really control it. So
Milfelt's going to unlap himself, but he's got to go all the way back around the racetrack before he can actually call himself as the race leader here. Corey Rutherford sitting in third, trying to keep Paul Ellison behind with about a 3-second gap right now. Brody Gunter up on the jacks. Milfelt still on the backstretch, entering turn 3. I don't think he's going to be anywhere near Gunter, as Gunter is already on the left side, and he's off and away. Milfelt hasn't even exited 4 yet.
yeah, that's comfortable. You should have this one by enough of a margin, although the apron down here in 1 and 2 is incredibly sketchy. The problem now is going to be the tire warm-up phase. That's what he's going to try and look after. The damage to the right front corner of the split, it's a lot closer than I thought it would have been when we initially rolled off a 4, but it's still 1.5 seconds, so it's pretty comfortable.
Yeah, don't see Brody Gunter having any problem staying out in front. Jan Van Leer, Tommy Cook still within 0.7 of a second. Everybody else right now showing no signs of stopping anytime soon. One more break when we return. It's the final 20 or so laps on Green Flag TV.
Here at TWRS, we're always here to help our squad when they need a little push in the right direction. That's just who we are. We're a beautifully diverse group of goofballs dedicated to driving fake race cars as fast as possible. And we continue to push each other to the front using the power of nonsense. We have one of the strongest NASCAR programs on the service, and you can access it all for $24.99 a month. And we just released individual subscriptions for $14.99 a month for each NASCAR vehicle. We also just added a Rallycross program, and our IndyCar program is taking off as well. So come join the weird side. We have speed and cookies. Cookies are not included in some locations.
Welcome back to Green Flag TV. Coming up to 16, making 15 laps to go this time by at the line. Corey Rutherford has lost out to the podium to Paul Ellison up the road. And that will end the podium battle. Not seeing anything that'll stop it from being a Gunter Milfeld-Ellison. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, it's just sort of settled, unfortunately, for Milfeld Jr. Whatever the damage was from that touch with the wall, it looks like it's right side front splitter. It's just the car's just lost all its speed. It has speed very, very early on in the stint. He's able to harass for a couple laps, and then it just goes away from him. So, unfortunately for him, that's just the nature of the beast. He's not put himself in the ability to ever take. There was a couple of opportunities throughout that run where he really had to be clinical, but if he was, absolutely could have gone and won that race today. Lost those opportunities. That's racing. You know, sometimes you just got to be a little bit more aggressive. Sometimes you got to bank points, and looks like tonight he's just going to focus on banking those points. Had a crack, you know, can't be too disappointed.
And I mean, hey, again, you take a look at Milfeld's overall pace throughout the course of the afternoon, and how much he's still been able to hang on to second place very convincingly despite that damage. That's still not a bad race at all. I'm sure he's wondering what could have been, but second place at the end of the day, it's not a bad result at all.
No, you take that, and you know it's going to come. Some days you're going to run like that, and it's good enough for a win and a win by country mile. Other days you're going to run like that, and you're going to be at the tail end of the field. The car's not going to make the finish line. So, you know, seconds above average in terms of what you would expect from a run like that. He'll be very, very happy. Pace is good, gives him an opportunity. You know, this is a building platform for the remainder of the season, and I think it's a really, really good opportunity as well. Somebody's gone out there tonight and taken it to Brody Gunter. I think that's a big, big part of things as well, you know.
And it's a much needed performance from him as well. I mean, only one podium finish, started second, finished second at Motegi. Other than that, his best finish of the season was at Indianapolis, where he finished 9th after making up 7 spots. One top 10 of the Irish Superspeedway, then outside of the top 15 for the other races that he has started this season. So it hasn't been a season of too many highs for Millfeld. I think this is a much-needed confidence boost to finish up on the podium strong.
Yeah, it is, and particularly at a difficult track like Nashville as well. So that's the big takeaway. When you run well at Nashville, it says that, you know, there's enough there to say, hey, you can go and run everywhere else. Nashville's also one of those tracks where a lot of people really struggle. So what this says is that Millfeld's able to just sort of maintain a really, really good consistent style performance across difficult tracks. If he can lift what his peak performances is just a little bit, he's going to be harassing for wins just about week in, week out. He's good enough now. One tidy error, you know, great run. You take those at the end of the day. Corey Rutherford, I was dissing this fuel strategy. And remember, we'll have a talk about this at the end of it as we're closing in on the end of the race with 10 to go as well. 4 seconds. Think about 4 seconds on that first run and what that's actually cost him. He is less than 4 seconds away from a podium at this point in time. That could have been a podium for him tonight.
He does have Jan Van Leer charging, though, so we could find himself being bumped back to 5th as well. Van Leer just got around Joshua Rutherford, the other driver on this fuel strategy, and Rutherford, well, one of them way up the racetrack and into the wall. Corey Rutherford still with about 5.8 seconds back to Jan Van Leer, but Van Leer did run down about a 6-second gap to Joshua Rutherford at the same amount of time that he's got left. So Rutherford's 4th place is not secure yet.
Yeah, lap times, though, are about 7/10 of a second, 6-7 of a second quicker. So it's on the table. It's going to be very, very tight on that final lap. It's whether or not Corey Rutherford. But at the same time, remember, Rutherford's still saving. If he hits the amount of fuel that he's got to save and he clears it, he's only going to do 39 laps. You know, that's 2 laps worth of fuel saving across the run. That's very, very easy to do. That is not a huge ask. So he can clear that fuel mileage early. Then he can lift the pace back up. That covers him off. And I think he's starting to lift just a little bit.
Coming to 7 laps to go, this time by for Brody Gunter, looking nigh unstoppable. He has gotten 4 wins on the season, and 3 of them have been back-to-back, looking for win number 5 and his 4th in a row, meaning he will have dominated the entirety of the last month of racing, and he could very well be looking to try to lock out all of September if he can also take a win in 2 weeks at Bristol.
Oh my God, look at the performance, the speed. He's just been so quick and so consistent. And the benefit is when you're running up front like that, think about the tracks that he's won at here as well. There's Coda in the middle of that. There's Indianapolis. There's now Nashville, right? So he's not won at similar styled racetracks. He's won at very vastly different racetracks. Was there some luck in the middle of all that? Absolutely there was some luck. Was there positioning timing? Absolutely there was some positioning and timing. And you know, the one that's sort of splitting those up and meaning that he hasn't won 5 races back to back to back was Rockingham, whereby he was just on the wrong strategy. So he's been quick, he's been there, he's been consistent. The big question you start asking is, where does the challenge come from? And we got an answer from that with Millfeld Jr. here tonight. There is a challenge that's going to be mounted. The thing that he's going to do now is not get lazy. He's just going to make sure he keeps logging the laps. He keeps coming in. He keeps putting the practice. He keeps putting the work in so that somebody else doesn't run him down and catch him. Because if he can just maintain what he's doing right now, that's good enough. He's going to win himself a title.
You think about his last performance in the season as well. Season 1, he only had 1 win at Vegas. And he did finish, he had a lot of runner-up finishes. He had finished in the number 2 spot 5 times. I gotta be honest, with how we've seen him run this season, I think he took seeing so many second-place finishes a little personally, because he has clearly been putting in the work to get that 01 car back up to snuff.
Anyone that knows me personally at the moment, I've just dropped 15 kilos. Spider's a powerful motivator. So, yeah, for Brody Gunter, I mean, he looks at it, he goes, I'm sick of being the bridesmaid and never the bride. Well, get the wedding bells ringing. That man is on his way to a marriage with a cup, I think. Yeah. I can't believe I got a divorce joke in there.
He's got 2 laps to go. I was a little bit nervous. I was holding my breath a little bit because he's got a lot of that lap traffic in the way, and among that is the battle for 9th between Rene Garcia and Joshua Higgy.
I think these guys have had a rough night, and they're actually keen to see Brody Gunter go by. That's one less lap they've got to do. Sometimes you're like, man, can this race just end a little bit earlier? And one of the ways to do that's to fall off the lead lap. So I think a few of these guys are looking at each other and just going, man, I'm so happy this is over.
Gunter will come off of turn number 4, takes the white flag. Oh, look out! Rene Garcia slided it out and all the way to the bottom of the racetrack after almost catching the outside wall. He'll still be in a side-by-side battle with Hiki as he comes down in the turn numbers 1 and 2. Looking like Garcia's got this one handled, but Hiki trying to go for the over-under down the back straightaway for the 9th place spot. Hiki's got the inside. He's going to try to charge for it down to the bottom side of 3 and 4, but Brody Gunter off of turn number 4. It is his 4th win in a row and his 5th on the season as Gunter dominates the Nashville Superspeedway.
Yeah, good luck touching this, man. What a run. Give that man a guitar, because he just played every single note around this racetrack to perfection. Great night. Really, really strong. Cool under pressure. Did just a phenomenal job. I really like the drive from Milfeld Jr. Ellison did okay. I think Ellison probably could have done a little bit better. I think he'll be a little bit annoyed with himself with finishing that far back, but it is what it is.
Corey Rutherford.
Oh, this beef. There is beef on the cooldown lap. Higi and Garcia are just tagging each other on the cooldown lap.
Now the question is that spiteful or is that
I don't know.
having a little bit of fun?
Yeah, I don't know. It could be them just saying, hey, great race, you know what's going on. They're still continuing on. That's the 2 cars there whilst the celebration's going on for Gunter.
Gunter gonna burn it down. Hard to get some smoke shows going at a concrete track like this, but he's doing his best. He'll put it up against the outside wall and just pin his foot to the floor. So the driver to Stark Florida gonna get himself in with a good shot there. Let's take a look on what happened here to some of these other drivers coming down to it. This will, of course, be the battle coming to the line. Joshua Hiki and Rene Garcia. They were going at it, and I wonder, was there a little bit of contact in turn 3 and 4 potentially?
No, it was clean. It was clean. So I don't know what... I was watching that one from Garcia and Higi, and it was clean. So, yeah, I'm not 100% sure what Garcia is annoyed with, because he initiated the contact. So that's the finish line there. So the race is now over from this perspective, and then you just follow it down the back straight away. He just puts the bumper to him a couple times, not obnoxiously, just enough to say, hey, I'm annoyed. And then Higi chases him up the track down in 3 and 4. Here, right?
Yeah.
See, the first bump, I'm like, okay, they're just saying, you know, good job, good race, well done getting me at the line. But then it continues. It's this here.
Wow, no kidding. He puts him in the wall.
Whoa.
Yeah, that might be a little bit of frustration. I know they got close coming off of turn numbers 3 and 4, but it didn't look that bad.
There was no contact. I saw no contact, unless there's something much, much earlier in the race that I didn't see. Garcia dropped. These guys finished 2 laps down, so I wonder whether or not Higi might have been the reason Garcia dropped 2 laps down.
I'd be surprised if he was. I mean, let's take a look at this here. Garcia got wicked loose coming off of turn number 4, but I mean, that's just racing. They never touched each other. I don't know. That's an interesting one.
I don't know what to tell you. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know, you know, what the difficulty is. Like, there's clearly something there, but I don't know what it is. Always adds a little bit of flavor, though. You gotta get the garlic powder out when you're having a good meal like this.
Well, we had a good race this afternoon, and it'll be a race that was dominated by Brody Gunter, taking his 5th win of the season and his 4th in a row. Mike Milfeld Jr. picks up a solid number 2 with Paul Ellison back in 3rd. Corey Rutherford was 4th, Jan Van Leer 5th. Tommy Cook and Joshua Rutherford closed out the top half of the field, with Rutherford, the first car, a lap down.
Yeah, and from there on back, it's going to be Jan Van Leer, sorry, my apologies, Matt Williamson, Josh Higi. Williamson, the last of the cars at 1 lap down. Josh Higi, the first of the cars, 2 laps down. Rene Garcia also there alongside Alex Howland. Jarrell Williams, 3 laps down, and Casey Campbell, the only non-finisher.
What a tough break for Casey Campbell. Just had that pit stop entry go awry. Went hard into the wall in the middle of pit road. We'll get a rundown now, though, and talk to all of the drivers that come home on the podium finish here this afternoon. I will, of course, look to kick it off first and foremost with none other than the man himself. Brody Gunter comes home, and he'll take up his 5th win of the season. And Brody, with this being your 4th in the row, I'm starting to run out of questions to ask you, so I'll ask you this. I mean, what's it going to take to stop that car? Do you have to put spike strips in front of you now?
I hope not. That sounds very, was it Mad Max style? I mean, maybe we can They Corey can provide everyone with like those spikes come out of the side of the wheels and stuff. But before that, as long as I get some as well, obviously. But yeah, I mean it was a good race. Very close with me and Mike. He almost had me a couple times. He was keeping me very honest. I think after he hit the wall off turn 4, I realized something that I was doing that was really hurting me speed-wise. I wasn't turning the steering wheel as much as I could have been. I was trying to put it together after my second pit stop. That was the what I was holding me back because my tires were at like 88% after the full fuel stint.
Of course, it's been a solid championship for you so far. We were talking about how you only had one race win last season, and now you've come out swinging here in season number 2. But of course, no matter how much of a gap you build up, that points gap will be stripped down big time when we reach the playoff run. How are you going to be able to keep this momentum up to make sure that you can have a strong playoff run now that you're effectively locked in?
Yes, I mean I hope to go into it the same way I have been, that last couple of races, just being smooth, calm, not doing anything I feel like crazy with strategy. I feel like less risk means it's more reward sometimes, but yeah, definitely the points reset is gonna hurt. I know it hurt Hunter last season when he had a dominant lead like I did as well, lost all of it, and then Heggie ended up winning the championship, so I know anything's still possible for everyone else, so it's just I'm gonna take a couple luck in those 3 races, and yeah, like I said, hope that I can show the same results in those 3 races like I have in the last few races.
2 weeks from now, we'll be running at the Bristol Motor Speedway. What do you think the last Great Coliseum is going to have for you?
I hope some good stuff. I've done terrible in a NASCAR at Bristol recently. It's usually a street stock track for me. But I've sucked in every type of NASCAR at Bristol, so hopefully with Team Watson Racing setups, amazing setups. I mean, I love every single one of them so far. I haven't had really any like major complaints about them. They've been really good, so hopefully I find some better speed at Bristol with their setups, but I guess we'll have to see.
Well, we'll see in 2 weeks when we go out to Tennessee. Congratulations on taking home a very dominant race win this afternoon, though. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Sounds good.
Brody Gunter comes home out of Stark, Florida, taking his 4th win in a row. We'll move down to Mike Milfeld Jr. standing by with Scott Rankin.
Mike Milfeld Jr. I mean, you'd be reasonably happy with that race. Another very, very strong finish, in terms of things. You looked, I do wonder at points during that race whether or not you felt like you were the stronger of the 2 cars running up at front. You certainly looked like you had a lot of pace. That contact with the wall, it just cost you so much. But, you looked passive at bits and pieces throughout the race. You were happy to run second, save some tires, save some fuel, run a different strategy as well. You just looked so strong tonight.
Yeah, it was a fun night. I wish I wouldn't have hit the wall. I got in the aero wash behind Brody. We were having fun. That was going to be a fun race. I think we were pretty evenly matched. I think he was a little better on the long run than I was, but on the short run, I was definitely a little faster, but it was fun.
In terms of things we were saying, I mean, big confidence boosted tonight, being able to get up here and spend a lot of the time running up front. Nashville's tricky track as well. What do you take away from tonight?
It was just a good run. Wasn't great. Wasn't horrible. So we'll take it and move on to Bristol. Hopefully get a win there.
I mean, we're going from concrete track to concrete track. Do you think that means that you're lining up to be in a really, really strong position? Strategy is going to play a huge part of that race, but at the same time as well, qualifying's huge at Bristol. How are you feeling on the short run pace?
I feel pretty good at Bristol. I like the concrete tracks. They're good to me. So hopefully we'll go there and have a good run.
Can you at least get in contact with the concrete barriers and tell them to be a little kinder, though? That'd be my only.
I hope so.
Mate, congratulations on the run tonight. Who would you like to give a thank you to?
Thank you guys for the broadcast. You guys do a great job. Appreciate it. Thank Corey for the league. It's a great league to run in. It's fun. Pretty competitive. No matter what skill level you're at, there's always somebody to race at in this league. So that's pretty much it.
Congratulations, Mike. And really strong runs tonight. It was really good to see you running up front as well.
Thanks, guys.
And then finally, Nolan is going to be down and chatting with the final driver stepping off the bottom step of the podium. It's going to be number 55, Paul Ellison.
So we'll get the final podium driver up here into the broadcast booth. Paul Ellison able to come home and just picks off Corey Rutherford for that third place spot. Paul, it's a race that you found yourself running on the podium for much of this race tonight. Kind of talk us through what was a strategy-filled run for you.
I just planned on pitting on the fuel mileage. I probably should have pit as early as Mike and Brody did just to stay with them, but I wanted to see if I could flip it on them, but it just didn't work out. I think I was a little too cautious getting to pit road because it was a little crazy.
Pit road for sure was not an easy task for drivers this afternoon. Was that one of the biggest challenges you faced this afternoon in taking that third, or was there more challenges out on the racetrack that tried to slow you down?
No, that was it. The pit road, just trying to hit it without spinning out and slamming into the wall was the biggest challenge. I like Nashville. I've always run good here, so I expected to do good.
Well, you're running a solid 6th place right now in the points, but still not safe as we start to look forward towards the playoff run with us enter the second half of the season. What are you going to have to do over the next few weeks to make sure that you can be there to fight for a championship at season's end?
Probably top 5s. I mean, that's what I'm shooting for, is just to finish out the year with some top 5s. Just not getting in trouble is going to be the biggest thing, not getting caught up in anything. Just maximizing points like it is not.
Well, it'll be a tall order for that at Bristol Motor Speedway, a track where anybody can find themselves in trouble at any time. But that 55 car has been looking clean the last few races. No reason for it to stop now. Wish you the best of luck when we return to Tennessee.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Paul Ellison out of Alexandria, Alabama, comes home with the number 3 spot this afternoon, down 1, but still finishing his race on the podium. And well, Scott, that takes us to the end of racing action this afternoon. Boy, it was a wild one, but a strategy race, always something that we like to see. We've had quite a few caution-free races this season. Something tells me, though, next week, or, well, 2 weeks, sorry, not going to be a similar story.
Yeah, Bristol's going to be some beating, there's going to be some banging, there's going to be some beef that's brought to town. I just hope that there's a nice, good meat rub that's placed on it so that it tastes nice, it's juicy. It's not that kind. It's a little bit too overcooked, a little bit too dry, but there's going to be some tempers flaring. It's going to get hot when you head down to the bowl.
Well, they call it the last great Coliseum for a reason, and it's going to be an absolutely phenomenal drive for everybody when they go racing out in 2 weeks. We are off next week for the ASRL NextGen Cup Series, but don't you worry. We got plenty of racing action coming up to fill the void, including a Superspeedway doubleheader. We're going to be, of course, going to Daytona International Speedway, the World Center of Racing, playing host to the hotly anticipated High Tide Racing League season opener for 100 laps. And then we'll swing to the, I guess you could call it the bigger brother, when we go out to Talladega, Alabama for the next race of the ASRL Cup season. And then, of course, don't forget, the Beer League will still be back in full force when they go racing for their next round, coming up this Wednesday as well, with only 2 races left on the calendar. Virginia International Raceway bound to throw up some challenges for the rest of the field as well. My name is Benola Rempel alongside Scott Rankin. If you want to find more about who we are, what we can offer you, check us out today at www.greenflightTV.com. Thank you for joining us on Sunday night. We'll see you when we go racing in 2 weeks at the Coliseum.